What if the lake of fire mentioned in the Bible is not a physical place, but a symbol of something much deeper? This is a question that has intrigued spiritual seekers and scholars alike. The lake of fire, as referenced in the Bible, is commonly misinterpreted as a literal place of eternal torment. However, a closer reading of the scriptures reveals a different perspective. The term lake of fire is mentioned 5 times in the book of Revelation. It's a representation of eternal destruction, distinct from our common understanding of hell as the resting place of the deceased. The entities cast into this symbolic lake are not literal beings, but rather symbolic representations of destructive forces and states. The devil, for instance, is a spirit creature, immune to the harm of literal fire. He is cast into the lake of fire, symbolizing his ultimate destruction. Similarly, death, an intangible state of life's absence, is also cast into this lake. As a state of inactivity, death cannot literally be burned. It's the symbolic representation of its eradication that is being communicated here. Then there are the wild beast and the false prophet, both symbols in their own right. If these entities are symbolic, doesn't it stand to reason that the lake into which they are thrown is also symbolic? The Bible states that the lake of fire signifies the second death. The first death, a result of Adam's sin, is reversible through resurrection and will ultimately be eliminated by God. However, the lake of fire represents a different kind of death, a second death, from which there's no resurrection. Jesus holds the keys to hell and death, the authority to release people from the first death, but there is no key to the lake of fire. This symbolic lake signifies eternal punishment in the form of permanent destruction. In the Bible, the lake of fire means the second death, a death from which there's no resurrection, a symbol of eternal punishment in the form of permanent destruction. To better understand the lake of fire, let's venture into the Valley of Hinnom, or as the Bible calls it, Gehenna. This valley, located just outside Jerusalem, held a special place in the everyday lives of the city's residents. They used it as a garbage dump, always keeping a fire burning to consume the refuse. Anything the fire could not reach, maggots would consume. In his teachings, Jesus used Gehenna as an illustration of everlasting destruction. He referred to it in Matthew 23, verse 33, and again in Mark 9:47-48, saying that in Gehenna, the maggot does not die and the fire is not put out. He was alluding not only to the conditions in the Valley of Hinnom, but also to the prophecy at Isaiah 66:24. His words painted a picture of complete annihilation, not of living beings, but of carcasses, the remains of those who have passed. Just like the lake of fire, Gehenna represents permanent, everlasting destruction. But what about the phrase, tormented day and night forever and ever? Does this imply eternal torture? This haunting phrase from Revelation has been a source of contention and confusion for many. However, upon closer examination, we can unravel its deeper meaning. Firstly, for the devil to be eternally tortured, he would have to exist indefinitely. But the Bible tells us that the devil will be brought to nothing, completely extinguished from existence. Secondly, consider the nature of everlasting life. It's a gift from God, not a form of punishment. The thought of eternal torture contradicts this understanding. Finally, let's remember the entities being tormented: the devil, the wild beast, and the false prophet. These are symbols, not beings capable of experiencing literal physical torture. So the lake of fire is not about eternal torture, but about eternal destruction, an end with no return.